Welcome to The Edge by MGR with your host, David Gill.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to The Edge podcast by MGR. Your host, David Gill here. I hope everybody's having a fantastic week. I am, as always, want to apologize for no episode last week. Had some personal stuff come up and was not able to record it. But we are back, and today's episode is going to be all Disney all the time because they made some big announcements with Disney Plus, which I've been anticipating for the past year. We've been waiting for this information for a while, and they finally, lifted the curtain. Let us in on their plans, their secrets, their strategies, and quite frankly, I was impressed, and I thought that they made pretty much all the right moves. And I wanted to talk about it and how everybody in their business can learn from exactly what Disney is doing with Disney Plus, whether you even make content or not. So anyways, that is going to be the focus of today's episode. So let's get right into it.
You ain't got no money, I ain't got no time. All these faces looking funny when I'm driving by.
So before we get into exactly what Disney is doing, I wanted to talk about content in general and how content is traditionally monetized. Basically, there are two ways to monetize content, two traditional ways, I should say. I'll get into more advanced methodologies that Disney utilizes better than anyone else in a second. But the two traditional ways are number one, just try to distribute it yourself and make money on it in some way. That means basically if you make something, you can try to get people to buy it, or you can put ads on it. Basically, try to make money yourself. In the old media world, this was pretty rare because pre-internet, it's very hard to get anybody to see your content if you're not going through a major distributor. In the internet world, it is easier that most people can create content and upload it and try to get their own sponsors, their own advertisers. Obviously, podcasters do this all the time, or lots of people have subscriptions for their content, or you can, even nowadays, there's lots of people who just take donations for their content, etc. So that's kind of the self-distribution route, or the more common, especially in the kind of bigger media content world, traditional media, when you think of like TV shows, movies, etc., the more common is basically licensing. And licensing can take a lot of forms. The most common that people think of is like after a movie has been in theaters, you see it on TV all the time, you might see it on HBO, wherever, that's licensing. Those companies are paying for that content to air it on their channel in hopes that it brings in viewers. And, this is the Netflix model. Obviously, Netflix has their own original content, but they also license a ton of content. And in fact, Disney was licensing a ton of content to Netflix. And basically, after their movies were out of theaters, after a lot of their shows were kind of off the air, they were licensing them to Netflix, and still are. If you go on Netflix right now, you'll see a lot of the Avengers movies and Black Panther and Star Wars movies and all that. And obviously the other way movies make money is through a different form of licensing, through the box office, which is kind of I wouldn't necessarily know if you would call that licensing. It kind of is. I guess you're basically licensing the movie rights to these distributors, movie theater chains being the distributors because they own the big buildings where people go to pay to watch movies. So that's, I guess you could call them licensing deals too, except big companies like Disney have tons of leverage and are able to get a very high percentage of the box office revenue. That's why movie theaters charge you so much for popcorn and sodas and all that, because they don't make anything on those movie tickets. So those are the two traditional ways of making money with content. Either try to sell it yourself or go to someone who already has a ton of distribution and have them pay you for the content. Now, Disney is unique, and this brings me back to an episode of this podcast that I did. I think it was last summer. It was probably June or so. It was last year when Netflix basically reported bad numbers and their stock dropped significantly. And I made a podcast afterwards saying what Netflix should do in order to continue to grow their revenues. Because right now, the only way that Netflix makes money, or I shouldn't say the only way, but the largest majority of their the largest revenue stream, the far majority of the money that they make comes from subscription revenue. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody, but I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. It's not a bad thing, but it's also not a good thing. And I'm gonna get into that a little later, I guess, when I talk more about Disney Plus and why Disney has been so smart with what they're doing. But Disney is unique. And I was saying that Netflix should try to mimic them because Disney makes money in so many ways that are not just the traditional selling your content, right? Disney has the ability to sell its content on its own. That's why it's making the streaming service. But in the past, they were mostly just licensing their content. Like I said, a lot of the Disney content is on Netflix because Netflix is a major distribution channel and they're able to pay top dollar for Disney content. And they know that a lot of people will want to, a lot of their subscribers are going to be interested in the Avengers and Star Wars and all of that. But Disney obviously is not just a content company. They own Disney parks, Disney cruises, Disney hotels. And Disney cruises and hotels there's kind of two versions. There's like the Disney cruise that's like a Disneyland on a boat. And then there's also adult cruises that are just like regular cruises that are money makers for them too. They also have a ridiculous amount of merchandise, and this is probably what they do better than anybody else. They sell so many toys, so many games. They make money in so many different clothing items. Just think about all the times that you see someone wearing a Mickey Mouse shirt or some Disney related thing. They make money in so many different ways. Like I said, especially through their parks and all types of methods. This is what makes Disney so special, and this is why Disney Plus makes so much sense for them. And so let's get into Disney Plus a little bit, right? So we talked about the traditional ways that companies make money. This is why I was saying that Netflix should try to actually mimic Disney. That they should try to, especially on the merchandise front, try to merchandise the hell out of their content and make a ton more. The only one that I've seen them kind of be successful with is Stranger Things, because that's kind of it's the type of show that lends itself more towards lots of merchandise. But even that show has kind of fallen off now in popularity, and I really haven't seen a ton of Netflix merchandising, which is something I think they're majorly missing out on and could be a massive revenue stream for them. So let's talk about why it makes sense for Disney to create Disney Plus rather than to continue what they're doing right now, which has been, like I said, just selling their content once it's out of theaters to whoever wants to pay top dollar. In many cases, that has been Netflix. But the reason it makes sense is because there's two things that Disney gains by having subscribers to their Disney Plus, and we're going to talk about ESPN Plus and Hulu later on as well. There's two things that they gain. Number one, first-party data. When you sell the rights to a show, you only get value in one way. You get money, straight cash, which is great for most creators and most companies. Their goal is just to create great content that people want to see and then sell that content off in some licensing route that makes them a ton of money and can be very lucrative. A great example is Friends, which just recently made big headlines because I think it's the second most popular show. I think only The Office is more popular on Netflix. And basically the license expired for Netflix and a ton of users complained. And so Netflix paid $100 million to extend the license for Friends. And that's a perfect example of the creators of Friends, the owner, the actors and all them, they don't care about building a customer relationship or getting first-party data. They just want to keep continuing to milk that cow as long as they can for as much money as they can until people stop caring about Friends, which it doesn't look like people will because it's been over 20 years and it's still a very popular show. But the point is that not everybody cares about first-party data and building a consumer relationship, but Disney does for the reasons that I said before, that they have so many opportunities to monetize outside of just selling their content. And not only that, they can make much more money than almost anybody can off of any single piece of successful content. So the main thing that they, like I said, the main drawback of licensing content is that obviously, you're selling it to Netflix. So Netflix gets all of the first party data. Netflix builds that direct to consumer relationship. Disney gets none, other than the fact that people are just fans of their content, and then they get the money, but they don't get any of the other goodies. And you have to look at it as, what value is Disney extracting out of their content, right? That's the ultimate thing. How many dollars can they extract out of each piece of content that they create? And through the licensing route, they're just leaving tons of money on the table, and because they have so many ways to monetize themselves. So by creating Disney Plus now, and again, I'll talk about Hulu and ESPN in a second, by creating Disney Plus, now they are acquiring that first-party data, and they are building that direct-to-consumer relationship. And in doing so, they're able to collect tons and tons of data on what you're interested in, and more importantly, what other ways they could potentially monetize you on. Say you're a big Avengers fan. Well, they have a new, Star Wars fan or whatever, right? They just opened their new Star Wars, or not just, but they opened a couple years ago, but they have their new Star Wars attraction at Disneyland, and they have tons of Star Wars merchandise, etc. Well, with the data that they get from Disney Plus, and they say this person is a Star Wars fanatic, they watch all the movies, they rewatch all the movies, they watch all the side TV shows, right? I think they announced a couple different side Star Wars TV shows. They watch all of those. So this person is very likely to want to go to the Star Wars attraction at Disneyland. They're very likely to want to buy Star Wars clothing. Maybe even they want to collect Star Wars memorabilia, figurines, whatever, right? All of those ways that they can make money besides just you buying a movie ticket, or or them, like I said, just licensing the content to Netflix. So that is the value, the incredible value. And there was a great interview with Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, after the announcement was made on CNBC. It was about a 15-minute long interview. It was a decent length, but he really explained exactly that. He said something like, I think he said that Disneyland and Disney World, etc., had 20 million visitors in the last year, I think is what he said, and that they have data on those people, but they have hundreds of millions of people who consume Disney content that they have no idea who they are. They have no data on them. They really don't have any direct relationship to them at all, because the only way they consume the content is either through a movie theater, which is some other company, or through another streaming service like like Netflix, or they rent the content through Apple or whatever, right? And so for all of those reasons, it's why it makes perfect sense that you could arguably say, underpriced their streaming service. A lot of people were probably expecting it to cost maybe $10, $12 a month, similar to Amazon or to Netflix, which costs $13 a month, and Amazon Prime. Obviously, Amazon Prime's a little different. It comes with all the free shipping and all of that, but that's $10 a month. So they probably could have charged more, but by charging less, they're going to be able to acquire many, many, many more customers, because at $7 a month for all that Disney content, and especially when it's going to be the only place where you're going to be able to get a lot of that Disney content, I anticipate quite a few people subscribing to this new service. So you add that low price on top of the fact that they actually already have massive distribution, right? Disney is one of the largest media companies in the world. They own several distribution channels for advertising. They own ABC, ESPN, obviously all of their Disney Channel and all these kid networks, where they are, believe me, going to be blasting this Disney Plus service later on this year once it comes out in November with advertising to try to get people to subscribe. And because they already own such massive distribution channels, they're not going to have nearly as high of a customer acquisition cost as, say, a Netflix or a lot of other streaming services that are trying to compete with them. So they have a low customer acquisition cost with tons of distribution, on top of the fact that their pricing is very fair at $7 a month. You add all those things up, and like I said, that means that they're going to get a ton of subscribers, and that's exactly what they want. They don't necessarily care that much about making a ton of money on the subscription revenue itself. They care about building the customer relationship and getting tons of data and being able to further monetize people for their entire lives, really. You know, they don't care about the $7 a month you pay. They care about getting you to go to Disneyland every other year and spend hundreds of dollars, if not even thousands if you're staying at a Disney hotel as well, or to go on a Disney cruise, or, you know, like I said, just to buy Disney merchandise at the store. All types of avenues of revenue that they have that they are going to be able to grow based on getting people to subscribe to this streaming service. And this isn't like some revolutionary new idea. This is really kind of I like to call it the Big Mac strategy. And it's something that I think every business can learn from, and a lot of businesses implement it. But the Big Mac strategy, I'm not the one who originated the Big Mac strategy, but there's different names for it. But it's essentially, why does McDonald's sell you a Big Mac for $1? They're not making money on that burger for $1. Maybe they're breaking even, maybe they're losing little money. I don't know exactly. But let's say they're just breaking even on that $1 Big Mac. They're not caring about making money on the Big Mac itself. They're using the $1 Big Mac to get you in the door. Because then once you're in the door, you buy the fries, you buy the soda, your kid's with you, and the kid really wants a milkshake, so you buy him a milkshake and some fries. And those are where they're the higher margin items. That's where they're really making the money. And they're just using that low price Big Mac to get you in the door. And that's what Disney's doing. Disney's Big Mac is, we're only charging $7 a month versus Netflix, which charges $13 a month, and all these other streaming services, which are much more expensive. HBO is $15 a month. We'll see what Apple's new streaming service is. I think a lot of people expect it to be somewhere around the $12 to $15 range. So by them being only $7 a month, that's their Big Mac. That's how they're getting people in the door. That's how they're getting that data. And then they're going to monetize you with the fries and the shake and all that, with the merchandise, and getting you to go to Disneyland down the road. So that's really the strategy that they're having here, and it's brilliant. I mean, it's exactly what I was hoping to see from Disney. I thought it was going to be the best route, and obviously Disney has a lot of very smart people there, including the CEO himself, Bob Iger. And they know exactly what they're doing. They have a roadmap and a plan, and they've had one for a while. And they're taking their time because they know they can, because they know that they own all of this IP, all of this content that no one else has access to, and that's not going to change. And that's why they've been a little slow in rolling out this service. But I think Bob Iger's reasoning was reasonable, in that he said, we want to make sure that this is a great service, it's very high quality, and that we have all our ducks in a row and we don't rush things when we launch. So let's talk about Hulu and ESPN Plus for just a second, because this is kind of the other little wrench in the mix. For those who don't know, when Disney acquired Fox, they acquired Fox's stake in Hulu as well. And that means that now Disney is the far majority owner of Hulu. So basically, Disney now is going to have 3 streaming services. They're going to have Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus for sports. So Hulu is going to have Disney's more mature content. They don't want to put that on the Disney Plus app. I get it. They want to keep that kind of separate. And then the bigger thing to me is that Hulu is going to be Disney's attempt at creating its own cable bundle. If you've been watching the NBA playoffs, like I have recently, you will notice that there are quite literally almost every commercial break a commercial for Hulu has live sports, and they're paying tons of big NBA athletes to promote this. They have Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo and all these guys who they're paying big dollars, top dollar to advertise Hulu has live sports. And this is a big deal for Disney because the thing that no streaming service, even Hulu, has really been able to touch or dominate is sports. And if Disney obviously owns ESPN, which is still largely the leader in sports, obviously Fox has done a lot of catching up, and NBC a little bit as well, but Disney still remains the leader in sports. And so with that, they want to be able to offer a cable bundle. I believe right now it's $45 a month. They paid, I'm sure, quite a bit of money to HBO to have rights to Game of Thrones, so you can also watch Game of Thrones on Hulu. Basically, Disney is throwing a lot of money behind Hulu right now to try to grow it and be this secondary streaming service that has more mature content, has live sports, and has basically other things that they own the rights to, that they want to be able to make money off of, that they can't necessarily put on their Disney Plus service. And they're also very aware of cable cutters, and they want to be able to capture a lot of those cable cutters and say, hey, listen, you're paying $100 a month right now for cable with a bunch of channels you don't care about. Pay $45 a month for Hulu. You get a ton of streaming options that are all these shows on Hulu. You're going to get a ton of original content, and on top of that, you're going to get the live sports as well. So I think that's a good offering. And then ESPN Plus is going to be more for sports fanatics of niche sports who want to watch niche things that aren't always on TV. Plus, they're going to have on-demand, plus all of those things are going to be on-demand live wherever you go. You can access them anywhere. You don't actually have to be at your TV. And they have some original content. ESPN Plus is probably the thing I'm least excited about because I think that it's going to be a much smaller market of people that subscribe to it unless they decide to start throwing major licensing, or I should say major sporting events on ESPN Plus. But I don't really see them doing that because they still make a ton of money from ESPN, the channel itself, much more than ESPN Plus. And so I think that they're going to continue to keep a lot of their major sporting events, Monday Night Football, they have so many, NBA, all of that on ESPN, not ESPN Plus. So that's kind of the strategy with Hulu and ESPN Plus. It's going to have a lot of the content that they can't necessarily offer on Disney Plus, and they're going to be able to still capture a lot of the cable cutters and a lot of the people who want to watch sports that is not going to be available on Disney Plus or other streaming platforms like Netflix, etc. So really, to wrap this up, I think Disney made a lot of smart moves, and the biggest difference between Netflix and Disney, and by the way, I don't think Netflix is going to be losing subscribers because of this. I don't think that they will at all. They've built so much original content themselves at this point that I don't think most people are subscribing to Netflix for the licensed content. I think most people are subscribing for all of the original content that Netflix has had, and that's been their smart move, that they've invested so much and continue to invest so much in original content because that's what they ultimately have full control over. But the biggest difference between Netflix and Disney, and this is what I was saying a year ago when Netflix's stock dropped due to poor numbers, is that, the reason why Disney is so much more profitable than Netflix really doesn't make much money despite the incredible amount of subscription revenue that they have. It's that Disney doesn't solely rely on subscription revenue to make money. They have so many different methods of monetization that they can undercut on subscription prices in order to gain more customers, like they're doing with Disney Plus. And even though they're undercutting by almost 50% the price of Netflix versus Disney Plus, they're probably going to make more money. Actually, I'm confident that they will make more money per customer at the same time. So they're able to offer something for a lower price while still making more money in the long term. That is why Disney is so brilliant. That is why Disney remains the king of content. That's why their stock jumped over 10% on the announcement of Disney Plus, because they continue to innovate and adapt as a massive company like very few are able to do. And they're able to really see the future and understand how the content business works. They've been in the content business longer than pretty much anybody else, one of the originators of it, and they continue to dominate because, one, obviously they have such a legacy, they own so much content, and they certainly use that to their advantage, but their strategy and their ability to maneuver over the past decade, even when they've had their ups and downs, has really been impressive when you compare them to most large companies, which often, once there's a major shift, like we saw just with the internet, I mean, just look at how many companies have died because of the internet or shrunk majorly, and Disney has been able to remain on top throughout it all, and I think that they're going to continue to grow, and in the long term, I think that they're going to be able to make a lot of money, and even potentially more money than they did in the traditional media world, which was already a cash cow. And the biggest lesson from this is to not always just look at the surface level revenue that your business can drive, not just the top level product, but to see how you can further provide value to your customers in several different ways as a method of making more money for yourself, and especially having higher margin methods on the side that provide a lot of value and are much easier to get people to purchase and to pay you for once you have acquired them. Just think the Big Mac strategy. What can you offer as the Big Mac to get people in the door? And then what can you offer as the fries and the shake and the soda that are super high profit margin for you, that also still provide a lot of value and that people want and or need? Well, I don't think anybody needs fries, but people definitely want them. So that's kind of the lesson for the day. And yeah, I'm very impressed with Disney. I think they made all the right moves. We'll see how everything goes for them. All right, and before we go, it's ad time. And by ad time, I mean talk about ourselves time. If you want to grow and make great strategic decisions like Disney, we can help you do that. And actually, I think this is a great episode to talk about first-party data, because I think a lot of people get kind of scared away from that. They don't even, right, because Disney is very focused on this, and I think it just shows why it's so important to collect first-party data and build that direct-to-consumer relationship. And the problem that we see a lot of our clients face and a lot of people that come to us face is that either A, they have a ton of data because they've been in business for a long time and they've collected a lot of data over the years, but they don't know what to do with it and how they can use it to further monetize and basically generate more revenue from current customers and current people that they already have data from. Or two, they like the idea of collecting lots of data and using it to grow their business, but they really don't know how to approach that and where to get started. And we can help you do both things, and especially in the e-commerce world, both through third-party channels like Amazon and through your own site, through your own e-commerce site as well. So anyways, you can go to mgragency.com. We have plenty of quick forms that you can fill out for whatever you need. we help businesses grow. That's ultimately what we do in whatever way possible. So just give us a quick call. We offer free 30-minute consultations, so it costs you nothing except for maybe you'll learn something or get a few ideas, whether you work with us or not. Up to you. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you did enjoy, it definitely helps us out if you leave a review. I've been trying to get more reviews lately because I want to reach that 100 mark on iTunes, 100 5-star reviews. We're getting there, but we're not quite there yet, so it really would help us out if you did. And share this podcast with someone who you think would also enjoy or you think could apply these principles and these strategies to their business. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. I will see you all next week.